trips?
One that's in the book or one that's not in the book?
Doesn't have to be in the book.
Whoa. But this one was on a route called the Canol Trail in the Northwest Territories, where I was following the route of a pipeline that was built during World War II. That ideally was to provide oil from the Northwest Territories into Alaska in anticipation of a Japanese attack during World War II. And it was hastily constructed, poorly conceived, very expensive. It didn't really work out. But the route of that pipeline, which is long abandoned now, became known as the Canol Canadian Oil Heritage Trail. That was probably the longest single unsupported trip that I did at about 200 miles. Also, it's by far the most remote trip because in all that distance, I think it was 30,000 square miles out there. There aren't any roads, there are no villages, no communities, nobody lives there. It's totally uninhabited. And because it's not a national park or any kind of government land, it's not patrolled at all. And so it's basically, if you go out there, you're on your own. And it was really an experience. You know, it's funny, I read a lot of magazines, outdoors magazines and backpacker magazines, and they never mention this trail, you know, and so I think it's kind of curious that they don't. I found out about it years ago in Backpacker magazine, but since then, I hardly ever hear anybody mention it. And it's a fantastic trip. The scenery is incredible. The other thing about that trip that I think makes it special for me is that among all the people who went up there to put this pipeline in 1941 and 42, into the summer of 43, were some African-American Army personnel who went up there to work on it as laborers. And I knew that my father was a veteran of World War II. And I felt that by going up there and following that route across the Mackenzie Mountains, that maybe somehow I could kind of make some attachment to my culture. So I had another dimension beyond being just a wilderness trip. And that's what I think was really special about that.